Buying chocolate in Britain is picking up a bar you've bought 100 times, never once turning it over and trusting what it says on the front. The chocolate bar you buy today is smaller than the one you grew up with. So you're paying more, you're getting less, and nobody sent you a letter about either. And that's not even the least of it, because some of the chocolate which is being sold on those shelves is no longer, in the eyes of the law, chocolate at all. In October last year, the company behind one of Britain's best-loved chocolate biscuits rewrote a jingle that had been running for 50 years. They took a single word out of it. Not for a rebrand, not because somebody in marketing fancied a change. They took it out because they were no longer allowed to say it. Once you hear which word went and what forced it out, you won't walk down that aisle the same way again. So here are 8 chocolate brands to leave on the shelf and 5 that still hold up. Named with what they cost and with what's actually inside them. Quick one before we go on. Hyping a video is the single strongest signal you can send YouTube to put this in front of more shoppers. If you think people should see what their chocolates quietly become, give it a tap. Number 8, Galaxy. An Easter egg is one of the few things in the shop you buy purely to hand to somebody else. You're not buying chocolate. You're buying the moment they open it. That's why the box is the size it is, and why it's shaped like a gift rather than a bar. Everything about that box is built to say generous. It isn't. The consumer group, which went through this year's Easter eggs in March 2026 and priced them against last year's. The Galaxy Milk Chocolate Extra Large Egg in Asda came in at 252 grams last year. It cost £4.98. This year, the same egg in the same shop is 210 grams. It costs £5.97. So the box lost 42 grams of chocolate and gained 99 pence, which put that at a 44% rise in the price of every 100 grams inside it. Now hold that, because there's a second half to it. That same egg is sold in Tesco. In Tesco, it went from £6 to £7 and it dropped the same 42 grams, which measured that one at 40%. One egg, 2 supermarkets, both of them shrank it and both of them charged you more for what was left. And of the 6 eggs, which price this year that Asda one rose fastest, 44%. Nothing else on their list got near it. That's worth sitting with because it tells you where the decision got made. If one shop had done it on its own, you could call it a shop being greedy. It happened in both, to the same product, in the same season. That's the manufacturer moving and the shops moving with it. And it isn't only Galaxy. The same which work found the Malteser's egg in Tesco down from 231 grams to 194, while the price went from £6 to £7. It found Cadbury mini eggs in Morrison's down from 193 grams to 181, and up from £4 to £5. Here's the part that makes this work on you. You don't weigh an Easter egg. Nobody's ever weighed an Easter egg. You look at the box, and the box is exactly as big as it was. The cardboard didn't shrink. The plastic tray didn't shrink. The picture on the front didn't shrink. You're standing there holding what looks like the same present, and you're paying £1 more for a smaller one. That's shrinkflation, and this is the aisle where it works best because nobody's ever checked the weight on a gift. I want you to hold on to the method because we're going to use it 8 times. You don't measure a rip-off by the price on the ticket. You measure it by what the price buys. Same egg, same shop, same week of the year, and 42 grams fewer in your hands. Now, Mars, the company behind Galaxy, didn't invent this year's cocoa price, and nobody there made the weather in West Africa. The egg's also still real chocolate. Nothing's been swapped out inside it, and for a lot of what's coming, that won't be true. But you're the one carrying it to somebody's kitchen table on a Sunday morning, and you're the one who paid. That's not a treat you're handing somebody, that's a smaller box with a bigger number on the shelf edge. Number 7. Terry's Chocolate Orange. You don't eat this one, you bash it. That's the whole ritual, and the packaging knows it because the instructions been printed on the box for decades. Whack it and unwrap it. It arrives in December, it sits under the tree or in the bottom of a stocking, and somebody hits it on a table. It's one of the very few foods in Britain that comes with a physical action attached to it. The ritual hasn't changed. What's inside it has. The Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit, a research group that tracks what climate impacts do to the cost of everyday goods, went back through the numbers on Britain's Christmas chocolate in 2025. On Terry's chocolate orange, it found the price of every 100 grams had risen by 116% since 2021. That isn't a rounding of general inflation. That's the same orange costing you more than twice as much per gram inside 5 years. And it was still shrinking while they were measuring it. In 2025, the orange lost another 12 grams down to 145. 12 grams sounds like nothing. It isn't nothing when the whole thing weighs 145. And it isn't nothing when it's the fourth or fifth cut in a row. Here's what that does to the ritual. The segments are the unit. That's how the thing gets shared. Everybody in the room takes one. Take 12 grams off the total and you haven't made the orange slightly lighter. You've taken a segment out of somebody's hand. The bash is the same. The unwrapping's the same. The number of people it goes round is not. And that's the pattern you're going to see everywhere from here. Nothing about the experience changes. The box, the ritual, the advert, the place it sits in the shop, all identical. The only thing that moves is the amount of chocolate, and it only ever moves one way. That's what people mean when they say a brand's gone downhill. It hasn't gone downhill. It's been walked downhill deliberately, 12 grams at a time. Now, the orange is still made with real chocolate, and Terry's didn't hide the weight. It's printed on the box, the way the law requires. If you turned it over and held it against one from 4 years ago, you'd find the number yourself in about 3 seconds. That's exactly the problem. Nobody's got last year's box. And there's something else running underneath both of these, which I'll come back to. The people who make Club biscuits changed the words of their own advert last year, and they weren't allowed to change them back. I'm not telling you which word went yet. We settle that at number 2. That's not a tradition. That's the same ritual, sold back to you a segment at a time. Number 6, Kinder. This one's aimed squarely at children, and it doesn't pretend otherwise. The egg is small enough for a child's hand. The chocolate's thin and sweet because children like it thin and sweet. And the toy inside is the entire point. The surprise is the product. That's what you're buying when you put one in the trolley to keep somebody quiet on the drive home. In the spring of 2022, the surprise was something else. In April 2022, Ferrero recalled Kinder Surprise across the United Kingdom. This wasn't voluntary housekeeping. Investigations run by the UK Health Security Agency, alongside the public health agencies of Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, had linked salmonella cases here in Britain to products coming out of Ferrero's factory at Arlon in Belgium. The recall widened as the investigation went on. It ended up covering Kinder Surprise in the 20-gram size and the 3-pack, Kinder Surprise 100 grams, Kinder Mini Eggs, the Kinder Egg Hunt Kit, Kinder Shocker Bonds. That's most of the Kinder Easter range pulled off British shelves in the week before Easter. Reports at the time put the outbreak at around 150 people across 10 countries. Most of them were young children. Ferrero traced the point of origin itself. It was a filter at the outlet of 2 raw material tanks. Take that in, a filter in a factory at the top of a supply line that ends in a chocolate egg small enough for a toddler to hold in one fist. And this is where you have to look at the timing rather than the bacteria. Salmonella happens. Factories get inspected precisely because it happens. What matters is the gap between a company knowing something's wrong inside its own plant and a parent finding out. That notice went up in April. It was the week before the single biggest chocolate buying weekend in the British calendar. Think about where you'd have been that week. The eggs were already bought, they were already in the cupboard, or already hidden somewhere for the Sunday morning, or already handed over at a birthday party the weekend before. Now, Ferrero did act, and it acted properly. It widened the recall itself, rather than being dragged into it. It shut the Arlon plant. It found the filter, and it said so publicly, which is more than plenty of manufacturers manage when the news is this bad. Set it against the recalls where a company argues for 6 weeks first, and Ferrero comes out of the comparison well. None of that helps you if you were the parent in the kitchen on the Saturday morning. You've got a packet from the cupboard in your hand. You're reading a photograph on a news website trying to work out whether the one your child ate on Thursday is the one on the list. A toy inside an egg is supposed to be the surprise. That year, it wasn't. Number 5. Celebrations. The tub is the format. Nobody buys celebrations for the individual sweets. You can buy every one of those bars separately, full size, any day of the year. What you're buying is the tub. It goes on the coffee table on Boxing Day and it stays there open for 4 days. It's bought to be communal. That's the whole product. So the size of it is the product. The Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit put a number on that in 2025. A tub of Celebrations held 650 grams in 2021. It now holds 500. That's a quarter of the tub gone in 4 years. Over that same stretch, the research group found the price up 88%. Put those two together. You're paying nearly twice as much for 3/4 as much. And the tub still looks like a tub. It's the same wide plastic drum with the same lid. You still have to reach right down into it. The one thing that's changed is how fast you get to the bottom, and that's the one thing you can't see through the wrapper on the shelf. This is the trick that works specifically on communal food, and it's worth understanding why. If a bar shrinks in your own hand, you notice because you eat it in one go and it runs out early. A tub gets shared across a room over 4 days at Christmas when nobody's counting anything and half the people in the room aren't yours. There's no moment where the loss registers. There's just a vague sense at some point on the 28th that it's emptier than it should be, and then somebody puts the lid back on and nobody says anything. You were right if you felt the tub emptied faster last Christmas. It did. A quarter of it's gone. And this is the one I'd point at if somebody asked me what shrinkflation actually is. It isn't a price rise. A price rise is honest. It's on the ticket. You can see it, you can decide. This is the opposite. The ticket goes up and the contents come down at the same time. And the packaging is designed so you can't perceive either one. You'd have to be holding a 2021 tub and a 2025 tub side by side to see it, and there is no shop in Britain where you can do that. And Celebrations isn't on its own in that aisle, which found the quality street tub had come down to 550 grams from 600, while its price at Morrison's went from £6 to £7. Nestlé, who make it, was asked about it directly. The company said the size and the recommended price were determined by several factors, including manufacturing, ingredients, and transport. 3 reasons for why a tub costs more, and not one of them is the word smaller. Now, Mars doesn't hide the weight either. 500 grams is on the front of the tub, in the same place it's always been, and the sweets inside haven't been reformulated into something else. A Malteser in that tub is a Malteser. But nobody stands in a supermarket in December doing arithmetic against a tub they bought 4 years ago. Nobody announced it, the lid's the same size, and a quarter of what was under it is gone. Number 4, Mondelez. This isn't a brand you buy, it's the company that owns the brands you buy. Cadbury belongs to it. So do Toblerone, Green and Blacks, Oreo and Ritz. If you've bought British chocolate this month, you've almost certainly bought from Mondelez without ever seeing the name on the front of anything. And in 2024, it was fined for keeping the price of that chocolate up. On the 23rd of May 2024, the European Commission, the competition regulator for the whole European single market, fined Mondelez €337.5 million. The Commission found the company had run 22 separate anti-competitive agreements or practices and had abused a dominant market position. What it was actually doing is much simpler than the legal language makes it sound. Chocolate costs different amounts in different countries. A trader's entitled to buy where it's cheap and sell where it's dear, and that competition is exactly what drags a price down. The Commission found Mondelez restricted that trade across borders, blocking the cheaper stock from reaching the dearer shelves. In the Commission's own framing, the company did it to hold its prices up to the detriment of consumers. And Mondelez didn't fight it. It cooperated with the Commission, expressly acknowledged its liability for breaking European competition rules, and took a 15% cut in the fine for doing so. That's the part I want you to hold on to. This isn't an allegation somebody made and a company denied. It's a finding the company agreed with, in writing, in exchange for a discount. So when you hear that chocolate's gone up because cocoa's gone up, and it has, and we'll come to that, keep this next to it. Here's a company that went to the trouble of stopping cheaper chocolate crossing a border. Not because it couldn't afford to sell it cheaper, because it didn't want to. That's not a market under pressure. That's a decision taken in a room about how much you were going to be allowed to pay. Now, that fine's a European one, and Britain isn't in the single market anymore, so the conduct the Commission punished wasn't conduct on your local shelf. Nobody's found that Mondelez did this to a British shop. That distinction matters, and I'm not going to blur it. What it tells you is what the company's prepared to do to keep a price where it wants it, the moment it thinks that price might fall. And it sharpens the promise I made you at the start. There are bars in that aisle that still meet the standard, and I'm going to name every one of them and tell you what they cost. Not yet. It wasn't a company caught out by a difficult market. It was a company that paid €337 million to keep you off the cheaper shelf. Number 3, Toffee Crisp and Blue Ribboned. These two sit at the front of the biscuit aisle, and they've done for most of a lifetime. Neither one's premium, and neither one pretends to be. You buy them for a lunchbox or a tea break, and the thing that makes them worth buying is the chocolate on the outside. That coating isn't chocolate anymore, not legally. In December 2025, the trade paper The Grocer reported that Nestlé had reformulated both bars. The company reduced the cocoa in the coating and increased the cheaper vegetable fat in its place. It cut far enough that the coating no longer met the legal minimum, so it can't be sold to you as chocolate at all. Nestlé now describes both bars as encased in a smooth milk chocolate flavor coating. Flavor coating. Those are the company's own words on the company's own product. And Nestlé said why openly. It told reporters it had recently updated the recipes and that, like every manufacturer, it had seen significant increases in the cost of cocoa over the past years. Which is true, and it's worth being straight with you about it. Cocoa went through the roof. Heavy rain and then drought hit successive harvests in Ghana and the Ivory Coast, which between them grow most of the world's cocoa, and the price hit a record of about $12,000 a tonne in January 2025. Nobody at Nestlé made the weather. But look at what that cost increase actually produced. It didn't produce a smaller bar at the same price. It didn't produce the same bar at a higher price, with a line on the wrapper explaining why. It produced a bar with less cocoa in it, sold in the same spot on the same shelf to people who had no idea the recipe had moved under them. And that's the race to the bottom in a single object. Once one manufacturer works out that the cheap fat is invisible to the shopper, everybody else in the aisle is looking at their own margin and their own competitor. There's no reward for holding the line because nobody in the shop can see you holding it. There's a legal line underneath the word chocolate in this country. That's what this entry is really about, and it's going to matter more with every entry from here. A manufacturer can walk a recipe right up to that line. What Nestlé did was walk past it. Now, Nestlé didn't break any law here, and I want to be precise about that because this is where these videos usually go stupid. Reformulating's legal. Changing the wording on the pack isn't a cover-up. It's the opposite. It's the labelling rules working exactly as they were designed to work, forcing a company to stop using a word it no longer qualifies for. The rules did their job. Nobody told you they had. That's not a new recipe. That's a bar renamed on its own wrapper. Number 2. Club and Penguin. Now we settle the thing I left hanging. Club and Penguin are made by McVitie's, which is owned by the Pladis Group. Both biscuits are older than most of the people eating them. And Club had one of the most successful advertising lines in British history, which ran for around 50 years and which you can almost certainly still sing. If you like a lot of chocolate on your biscuit, join our club. In October 2025, ITV News reported that both biscuits had been reformulated. Pladis had cut the cocoa in the coating and brought in palm and shea oils to hold the cost down. And exactly as with Nestlé, that coating dropped below the legal threshold. Neither biscuit can carry the word chocolate on its coating anymore, which left the company with a problem no marketing budget on earth could fix. It had spent 50 years telling this country there was a lot of chocolate on that biscuit. It was now, in law, not allowed to say the word, so they rewrote it. If you like a lot of biscuit in your break, join our club. That's the answer to the thing I left with you. One word came out of a 50-year-old jingle: chocolate. It came out because a company that had built half a century of advertising on that word had made a biscuit that couldn't legally claim it anymore. I want you to notice what that costs a business because it tells you how hard the sums must have been. A slogan running for 50 years is one of the most valuable objects a food company can own. You can't buy one, you can't build one quickly, and you certainly can't build one now. Pladis gave that up rather than put the cocoa back. Think about the meeting. Somebody in that room had to stand up and say the line goes because the recipe stays. And they were right commercially. That's the bit that should bother you. Nobody in there was a crook and nobody did anything underhand. They looked at the price of cocoa, looked at what you'd notice, and correctly worked out that you'd carry on buying a club biscuit that had less chocolate on it than a club biscuit is supposed to have. They were right, you did, and it's worth saying what a penguin is for. It's a lunchbox biscuit. It's the thing that goes in next to the sandwich for a child on a Tuesday. The whole reason it exists is that the chocolate makes it feel like a treat rather than a biscuit. Now, Club and Penguin are still perfectly decent biscuits, and Pladis didn't sneak any of this through. The wording on the wrapper changed, the advert changed. Anybody reading the box carefully would find it. Nobody reads the box carefully on a biscuit they've been eating since they were 9. The slogan didn't go out of fashion, it went out of date. Number 1, Cadbury Dairy Milk. There's no chocolate in Britain more trusted than this one. It's the purple bar in the corner shop, the one in the Christmas selection box, the one your mother bought and her mother bought before her. For most of a century, its advertising rested on a single boast about how much milk went into it. A glass and a half in every bar. That's the promise. Not luxury, not cocoa percentages, generosity. And unlike every brand so far, this one didn't have to move an inch. Here's why, and it's written into British law. The Cocoa and Chocolate Products England regulations of 2003 set out what a manufacturer is allowed to call things. It lists milk chocolate, and it says milk chocolate must contain not less than 25% total dry cocoa solids. The actual cocoa in the bar. Then, further down the same list, it lists a second product. That entry reads, and I'm quoting the statute, family milk chocolate or milk chocolate, and that one only has to contain 20%. Read that back because it's the whole thing in one line. There are 2 different products in British law, built to 2 different standards, and both of them are lawfully called milk chocolate. 25% or 20. Same 2 words on the front. Nothing on the wrapper tells you which one you're holding, and that's the charge. Not that anybody broke a rule, the rule was written with 2 flaws in it, and then written again so that neither flaw ever has to be declared. You're standing in front of the most trusted chocolate in Britain, and the law has arranged things so that you cannot tell from the front of that wrapper or the back of it which of the 2 standards it was built to. And there's a second permission sitting right alongside it. The same regulations let a manufacturer replace up to 5% of a chocolate product's fat with 6 named tropical vegetable fats instead of cocoa butter. The 6 are Ilipe, palm oil, sal, shea, kokumgurgi, and mango kernel. All that's required on the label is one line saying the product contains vegetable fats in addition to cocoa butter. It doesn't have to say which of the 6. It doesn't have to say how much. Turn a bar of dairy milk over in the shop and you'll find vegetable fats listed there, palm and shea, sitting alongside the cocoa butter. Mondelez is firm on the point, and its position deserves to be heard exactly as the company puts it. It says it hasn't reduced the cocoa solids or milk content in Cadbury products in Britain and Ireland, and hasn't replaced them with palm oil. That's the company's answer in the company's own words. Both things are true at once. The declaration's on the pack, and the company says nothing was taken out to put it there. What has moved is the size. The dairy milk sharing bar went from 200 grams to 180, and the price of every 100 grams inside it has gone up by around 65% since 2021. And the rule underneath all of it is still the rule. That 2-tier definition has sat in British law since 2003, and it's still what governs the wrapper today. Nothing in it requires a manufacturer to print which of the 2 rungs their bar is standing on. 23 years, and the single thing that would let you tell the difference in a shop still isn't there. That's not a loophole somebody's exploiting in the dark. It's the written standard, and it's not fit for purpose. Now, this is a genuinely good bar, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Dairy milk tastes the way it does because of that milk. And the 20% standard is a large part of why it tastes British rather than continental. Plenty of people prefer it to a darker, drier Swiss bar. That's a real preference, and there's nothing wrong with having it. This isn't the nation's chocolate holding the line, it's the nation's chocolate standing on a step that was built low for it. Now the ones that hold up. I promised I'd name everyone and tell you what it costs. I've got to be straight with you about something first, because on most of these videos, the good list turns out to be the cheap list, and this time, it doesn't. Real cocoa butter costs more than palm oil. That's the whole reason this video exists. So the honest picks here aren't the bargain of the aisle, and anybody telling you different is selling you something. What they are is the thing you thought you were buying in the first place. One note before I name prices. These are what we found this week. They'll drift a few pence either way, but the verdicts won't. Start here because it answers the excuse directly. Divine, 70% dark. The ingredients are cocoa mass, sugar, cocoa butter, sunflower lecithin, and vanilla. And every one of the cocoa ingredients is fair trade. There's no palm oil in it. There's no shea. It's a 90-gram bar, and you'll find it through the ethical online grocers and direct from Divine itself. Every company in this video has told you cocoa got more expensive. Divine paid it. The bar exists, it's made of what it says it's made of, and nothing in it has been swapped for a cheaper fat. It costs more than the bar it's replacing. Everything on this list does, and you know by now why. What you're buying is the thing the countdown kept showing you the absence of. Second, Sainsbury's Taste the Difference. Ugandan Dark. This is a supermarket own-label bar out of the same building as plenty of what's on the avoid list, and the ingredients are cocoa mass, cocoa butter, and sugar. That's it. 3 things. It's the shortest ingredients list of anything I've put in front of you today, branded or own label, and it costs a fraction of what the premium bars beside it do. The plainest label in the aisle belongs to a supermarket, and it's sitting at own brand money, and it closes the specific thing that number 1 is about. 3 ingredients is a bar with nowhere to hide. There's no vegetable fact clause to read, no 6-name list to wonder about, and no question of which legal rung it's standing on because there's nothing in it but cocoa and sugar. Third, Tesco Finest Dark, 85%, cocoa mass, cocoa butter, sugar, and flavouring. Now, you've already heard Tesco in this video because it's one of the 2 shops that shrank the Galaxy egg and put the price up. Both things are true at once. The same company that sold you a smaller egg for £1 more also sells a bar with 4 ingredients in it, and no substituted fat anywhere near it. They can do it when they decide to. On the Finest bar, they've decided to. It's a supermarket premium range bar, so it sits under the branded premium bars on the same shelf, and it's in every big Tesco in the country. If you want the shortest possible answer to this whole video from a shop you were going to anyway, that's it. Fourth, Lindt Excellence Dark, 70%. Cocoa mass, sugar, cocoa butter, vanilla. It's a 100-gram bar, about £3.50 in Tesco, and nearer £3 with a club card. This one matters because of where it is rather than what it is. You don't need a specialist shop, a health food aisle, or an online order to buy chocolate with no substituted fat in it. It's on a shelf you already walk past every week at a price you already pay for a large branded bar. That matters because of what happened at numbers 3 and 2. Both of those were reformulated quietly in the same aisle in the same year by companies watching the same cocoa price. Lindt was watching it too. 4 ingredients, and none of them is a substitute for the one that got expensive. And fifth, Tony's Chocolate Milk, 32%. This is the only milk chocolate on the list, and it's here for one reason. Everything else I've just named is dark, and dark chocolate has an easy job. The legal standard for dark is higher, and there's nowhere to hide. Milk chocolate is where the 2 rungs live. So this is the comparison, made directly. The ingredients are sugar, dried whole milk, cocoa butter, cocoa mass, and lecithin. No vegetable fat. It's a 180-gram bar at £4.75 direct from the company's own shop. It's not cheap, and I'm not going to pretend it is. It's roughly double what you'd pay for a big dairy milk. Turn it over, it says 32% cocoa, printed on the back in a country where nothing obliges anybody to print it at all. 32% is 7 points clear of the higher of the 2 legal grades. It's 12 clear of the lower one, and a bar that only ever reached that lower one would carry the same 2 words on the front. And there's a 3rd rung above both of the milk ones that almost nothing in that aisle reaches. To be sold as plain chocolate, just the word, on its own with nothing in front of it. British law says a product needs not less than 35% total dry cocoa solids. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.